everybody, my name is Stephanie Carroll and I write historical women's fiction. Today I'm going to be talking about some new historical fiction that I found at the library. I wanted to do a segment like this because I love historical fiction and I often have a hard time figuring out what's the best new historical fiction out there. So I thought that might help some people who are also looking for historical fiction. So the first book I have for you guys is The Soldier's Wife by Margaret Leroy. This is the cover. And this is a book about a military wife, basically. As World War II draws closer to Guernsey, Vivian, I probably said that, I probably ruined that. But basically, as World War II draws closer to a place, Vivian de la Mare knows that there will be sacrifices to be made. Not just for herself, but for her two young daughters and for her mother-in-law, for whom she cares while her husband is away fighting. What she does not expect is that she will fall in love with an enigmatic German soldier who takes up residence in the house next door. Though Vivian knows the perils of her love affair with Gunther, she believes that she can keep their relationship and her family safe. So this is a book basically about a woman who falls in love with a German soldier while her husband is away at war. Trying to find the publisher. Gail Syngage Learning is the publisher. And I picked it up because I just thought it sounded like an interesting book. It does not have any blurbs on the back. It's just the description. Usually books, there is a blurb on the front though. It says, utterly beguiling with its stunning and evocative description of the Guernsey landscape by Rosamund Lupton, author of Sister. Okay, so there's one blurb on the front. I'm wondering if this is actually self-published. I'm not sure. No, it's not. Gail Syngage Learning is a international publisher. Okay, so that's the first book I have for you. Sounds pretty interesting. Romance, possible thriller, definitely women's fiction. Then I picked up this book called No One Is Here Except All of Us by Ramona Osabel. This book I picked up because it sounds really, really interesting, very intellectual. Let me read the inside jacket copy. In 1939, the residents of the tiny Romanian village of Zalesjik are counting on their isolation to protect them from the catastrophe sweeping Europe. When a mysterious stranger is washed up on the riverbank and the illusion of peace is shattered, the villagers are forced to acknowledge the precariousness of their situation. Their Jewish ancestors famously moved and escaped for thousands of years across oceans, deserts, and mountains. Now it seems there is nowhere else to go, but even with danger imminent in every direction, the territory of imagination and belief is limitless. At the suggestion of an 11-year-old girl and the washed-up stranger, the villagers decide to start the world over. Through sheer will and imagination, they will reinvent the world, deny any relationship with the known, and begin again from scratch. Destiny is unwritten. Time and history are forgotten. Jobs, husbands, a child are reassigned. And for years there is boundless hope. But the real world continues to unfold alongside the imagined one, eventually overtaking it. And soon our narrator, the girl, grown into a young mother, must flee her village, move from one world to the next, to find her husband and save her children, and propel them toward a real and hopeful future. In rich, luminous, sure-footed prose, Ramona Osabel has created a hugely ambitious story about the bigness of being alive as an individual. As a member of a tribe and as a participant in history, both the story of one girl's coming of age and acceptance of her place within the world and a parable amount of the power of belief. No One Is Here Except All of Us explores how we use storytelling to survive and to shape our own truths. So this book just sounds really interesting. It's about a Jewish community that apparently, to deal with the you know, the chaos that's happening in Europe in 1939, World War II, they go off somewhere, seclude themselves, and like make up a new world to live in. Apparently, it says stuff about reassigning people, like reassigning children and husbands. So this all sounds really interesting, very weird, and it's basically about a girl who decides to leave this community of isolation and imagination, in a sense. Very intriguing. There are several blurbs on the back, which I will read to you now. The publisher is Riverhead Books, published by the Penguin Group. So it's a division of Penguin. Good sign. Here are the blurbs. In her debut novel, No One Is Here Except All of Us, Ramona Acebal breaks new ground with a unique prose style that weaves a classic immigrant tale into a world of dreams. The town of Zalistchik and its citizens rewrite their own story, filling it with magic, hope, and determination to find new ways to begin in the face of destruction. That was by Hannah Tinti, author of The Good Thief. This next one is by Samantha Hunt, author of The Invention of Everything Else. Here is a world created out of the most curious and beautiful remnants of our own. Opera, suitcases, letters, rivers, daughters, strangers, and shovels. Ramona Acebal cracks open the very idea of a book and fills its shell with a thing glimmering, thrilling, and new. Next blurb is by Ron Carlson, author of Five Skies. A special work of the imagination, an original gift, dark and light, and Ramona Acebal colors it all with glowing wisdom. The next by Brad Watson, author of The Heaven of Mercury. Beautifully written and alive in story, fascinating characters in place. You can't help comparing Acebal's book to Garcia Marquez with her fantastic vision of history and invention. The small village dreaming the vast world, but she is her own new fresh voice. And finally, the last blurb is by Christine Schutt, author of Florida and All Souls. A wise, compassionate book that even in its darkest turns uplifts. So that is No One Is Here Except All of Us by Ramona Acebal. I hope I said her last name right. So we have two interesting books, historical fiction. Both are World War II type books, very popular in historical fiction right now. The first seems to be a very women's focused fiction, probably a new author. It doesn't really say. Well, let me find about the author. Well, wait, let me find about the author in this first one first. Ramona Acebal is a graduate of the MFA program at the University of California, Irvine. That's the author of Everyone Is Here Except... No One Is Here Except for All of Us. She has been published in the New Yorker, One Story, the Paris Review Daily, Best American Fantasy, and elsewhere, and has received special mentions in the Best American Short Stories 2009 and the Best American Non-Required Reading 2009 and 2010. She is a recipient of the Glenn Schaefer Award in Fiction and was a finalist for the Perchart Prize. Acebal lives in California. Her website is www.ramonaacebal.com. This author, I want to find out if if this is her debut novel or not. Margot Leroy, author of The Soldier's Wife. Margaret Leroy studied music at Oxford and has worked as a music therapist and social worker. She has written 5 previous novels. Her first novel, Trust, was televised in the UK. Postcards from Berlin was a New York Times notable book, and Yes, My Darling Daughter was chosen for the Oprah Summer Reading List. Her books have been published in 10 languages. She is married with 2 children and lives in London. So that's interesting. Even though this author doesn't have blurbs on the back of her book, she's a pretty famous author, it sounds like. She's been published in... She's been a part of Oprah's book club. What did it say? It said she was published in the New York Times, as a notable book. But it looks like she's primarily based in London, and that might be why there's not a lot of blurbs and why we haven't heard of the publisher or her. This might be a book that's crossing seas, and that might be why there's not a lot of blurbs. So don't rule it out because it doesn't have blurbs. Blurbs don't mean everything in fiction. I think this book sounds really, really interesting. I think a lot of women would like it. And this one just sounds like a seriously intellectual, literary type work that just, the concept alone is very intriguing. So I hope this is giving you a couple ideas of fiction, historical fiction you can find at your library today. And if you're looking for more historical fiction, look for some of my other YouTube segments. And I hope to have you guys watch me in the future. Don't forget to check out my website, www.stephaniecarroll.com or .net, sorry, and check out my blog. Thanks for watching.